that bloody predator's back again. What is it about this pool? What, can they see it from space or something? Bloody predator. Now I'm gonna have to strip down to my undies and clean the frickin' pool again. I better get some more subscribers out of this. Bloody predator.
Ah yes, Predator Gorge. Those amazing mountains of doom we did a few episodes ago. You may have thought we were finished with those, but actually, we were just getting started. Okay, we're off and running. First up, we're going to work on the background sky. I'm starting with the darkest shade of the colour I've chosen. It's a sort of an industrial brown. It's actually called Domino. Now keep in mind that these are not artist paints that I'm using. These are just regular domestic wall paint. So I don't know exactly how they're going to go blending. We'll soon see, I guess. So the idea is to layer it, starting with a rough row of the darker shade at the top. Next, I've grabbed a slightly lighter shade, just by adding a little bit of white to it. This is in a separate cup. And you just working that across, and where it overlaps, you're sort of blending it in together while the paint's still wet. So you want to sort of avoid a hard-edged line. Also, as the paint dries, it'll change. It'll sort of metamorphosize into something a lot more pleasant looking. Now here I've grabbed the third shade, a third cup. Just working the way across again, and I'm just randomizing it, trying to picture a gloomy sky. As you can see, it's looking like 3 layers at the moment. Again, as the paint dries, those edges will disappear a bit. They'll blend into each other a bit more. Now I've got the fourth cup, the fourth shade. I think I did 5 cups. Working this way across again. Keeping the shape of the mountains that I've already sketched with a Nico pen. And yeah, scribbling all over the wall of our house with a Nico pen or a Sharpie, it was great fun. I wouldn't advise you do it though, your missus might not be very impressed. Okay, here I've got the 5th shade, the lightest shade, and I'm now taking this all the way down to meet the line of the mountains. I'm also going all the way down to the floor here. Quite awkward given the lack of space there is to work. There's only about 30-40 centimetres between the back wall and the layout, so I'm really squished in there. And quite an interesting place to put the ladder for the moment. I assure you, no slot cars were harmed during the making of this. Now at this point I'm just trying to smooth things out, and I'm adding a little touch of highlights here and there. Now they might seem a little bit odd at the moment, but just a couple of hours later the paint is dried and you can see it's all blended into one another. Let's have a closer look at that. Yeah, that's definitely looking like a gloomy sky in the background. Not bad at all. I'm happy with the gradient and it's settling down quite nicely. Yep, he's happy with it. Now let's just let it dry a bit longer. Oh yes, we have a boon. Wow! We do indeed. Boon approved, just like all the other ones. And there's even more to come. Now, here's the tricky part. I actually haven't painted anything like this since when I was 10 years of age. My mother enrolled me into something called the Morton Art Group, and every Saturday morning I would walk a couple of kilometres with my easel and my paints underarm to this community hall in our area, and we'd sit in there for about 2 or 3 hours trying to paint bowls of fruit or things like that. Now, I was never that good at it. Probably the best thing I ever did was this sailing boat out on the bay. But my teacher, she kind of helped it along, touching up the cloudy sky and the waves. The end result looked pretty good, but that was just a small typical canvas about 60 centimetres by 30 centimetres. So the idea of painting an entire wall, yeah, this is a bit ambitious. But as you can see there, I've already finished the first mountain, although I'm painting the wrong mountain right now. I'll figure it out in a moment. It'll suddenly dawn on me. There you go. Yeah, you work your way from the back to the front, and this one's the next in line, but no harm done. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm starting off my darkest shade, which is more or less black, and that's all the basic outline and the crevices, etc. And then I'm shifting over to the next shade. It had a little bit of white added to it, making it probably more like a charcoal. And I'm favouring the left side of the mountains are going to be the darker side. They're sort of in shadow. The right side is where all the lighter highlights will be, like I'm adding now. And you're just working your way across. Then when I've got those 4 different shades applied, I'm taking this sponge brush and just dabbing it over the top of everything, working my way from top to bottom. And it sort of smooths it out. It gets rid of those hard lines and sort of blends the colours together while the paint's still wet. And you're just looking at it, you're thinking, oh, let's put a bit more white here, let's put a bit more mid-grey there. And you're being arty, I suppose. Now here we are onto the 3rd mountain at last, so it wasn't a disaster. I'm adding the 3rd tone, and then we'll grab the other cup in a second and do the lighter shade. It's kind of looking like a really evil circus tent there. But you add those highlights on, and it starts to take shape. It's not hard. Grab that sponge and go dabbity-dabbity-dab, smooth it all out. Not only does it smooth it out, it adds all sorts of texture, so it's just not, flat paint. Well, there's 3 down. I'm starting to get a bit excited at this point, but I'm also getting more nervous because this is where you start to make mistakes and start stuffing things up, of course. Well, that's my story. Actually, once I get this one done, I think we'll stop because we need to make a little change to the paint for those last two mountains. There's the second shade going on. And I'm putting that just to the right of the first black streaks. Again, we're just trying to shift that light and those different tones across to the lighter side. Like, it's pretty straightforward working with these different shades of grey. If this thing involved all sorts of colour, I don't think I would have even bothered to attempt it. But who knows? Watching this back, I'm just amazed at how that's taken shape. It's looking pretty good. Of course, when the paint dries, it looks completely different. We're seeing it's very glossy at the moment. The light's catching the wet paint. But yeah, I think it's going to work. Now this mountain's looking quite good. I must be getting confident here, pulling out all the stops. What I'm actually trying to do is make these ones a little bit brighter than the ones behind them. This is an attempt to sort of create a perspective, a 3D kind of effect. Not bad. Well, so far so good. It's coming together. It's looking pretty cool. Way better than I expected. But what we've got now is the foreground, the last two mountains. I've done 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 4. I'm going a bit cross-eyed. I've got 2 big ones in the foreground. Now, these ones are real important because they act as a crossover between the ones on the wall and the real ones on the layout. And as you can see, they're a bit lighter. The ones on the back are a bit darker. They get slightly darker as they go into the background. So what I'm going to do for these next 2, these final 2, is I'm going to add a little bit more white paint, what a mess, eh? Into these 2. This is my darker shade of grey, my lighter shade of grey. I'm going to add a little bit more in each to lighten both of these down. And hopefully when it's on the wall, it'll all graduate and look almost seamless. That's the plan. So let's get back to it, eh? Well, here we are. We're in the home stretch now. Same sort of technique again. I have added some more white to the various shades, but not the black. The black is black. Same idea again, evil circus tent effect, all those crevices, etc. And yeah, I'm having a stretch there. I was feeling really sore, aching joints. By this time, I've been at this several hours, probably 3.5 hours. It has indeed been a marathon, but it's not over yet. In fact, this is the most important part, these 2 mountains. If I can't manage to get the shading and the texture just right, it just won't blend with the foreground. Those real little mountains of doom there on the layout. But really, the way it's working out, I don't think we can fail at this point. Hopefully. Now it's out with the sponge brush again. Dabbity dab dab dab. Smoothing it out, blending those shades together, and making it look a bit more realistic. Well, as realistic as I can make it look. Let's not get too carried away. Just about finished this one, looking good. Seems a bit dark, but when it dries it'll lighten up. And if not, I'll just add a few more light highlights to it. Okay, so over to the final mountain, and this one is the biggest one. It's absolutely huge. You're only seeing half of it, the rest is out of view. It goes all the way down to the floor. And once again, we're doing the evil circus tent effect. Yeah, if anybody asks me, do you paint? I said, yeah, I paint a pretty mean evil circus tent. And holy shit, look at the way this is looking. I just looked at the other mountains. Bloody hell. I did not think that this would look anything like this. It is, I don't know what to say, other than shut up and wait till it's finished. I mean, anything could happen. I can trip and fall and spill all the paint over the whole wall, ruining it. That bloody predator could storm in any moment and shoot the place up. You just don't know. So I better stop gushing until it's finished. Then we'll get excited. excited. Is that a word? I guess it is now. Yeah. And at last, the final bit of sponge brush smoothing. So glad to be near the end of this. This was pretty tricky, actually. Looks fairly straightforward, perhaps even easy in this time lapse, but no, trust me, it was definitely a challenge. Those little white highlights really make it, don't they? I think we're nearly done. Oh, more highlights? Yeah, I think it needed some. Oh, that's looking good. And we're done. Let's have a look. Now keep in mind it's still wet. Give it a few hours to dry properly and the tones will sort of lighten up a little bit. But that's looking pretty bloody amazing. And see how there's somewhat of a 3D effect? You've got that foreground moving across in front of the background. Watch this. Look at that. Yeah, those tones match really well. It sort of, it looks pretty seamless. Definitely can't complain about that. And just like that, we have a wall mural. I guess it's safe to say it turned out all right. But geez, that took all morning. That was exhausting. Over 4 hours worth of work to do that. And these foam art brushes certainly did the trick. Going dab, 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 dab. Thought it would never frickin' end. Bloody hell. Anyway, I think what we'll do is let the paint dry. And then I need to start hanging up all the banners and that. So we'll let that dry. And have a little rest for now. I'll get the banners, the rigging back on the ceiling so we can hang up the Red Bull Racing banner. Might throw up a couple of those checkered flag ones in the corners just to see how they look too. We'll see. So give me a little bit of time to get that happening. Meanwhile, it's time for...
Where's Betty? Where did that girl go?
Our girl Betty is usually very punctual and reliable, but early today she just suddenly disappeared. And no one's seen her since. Can you help us find Betty? She's got to be somewhere. Keep your eyes peeled. Okay, where is she? No. There she is. Found her. Good job, everyone. Last time you were all about as useful as a man with no arms in a fly swatting contest, but this time you've redeemed yourselves. Well done, slot car adventurers. You're awesome.
Well, there it is, all done. And if I do say so myself, it looks pretty darn good. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, oh, you had to put the TV up and the banners and it's covering up that work of art. The role of that was to never be the focus point of the room, but rather to lurk in the background in the shadows and just give that sense of depth that it's well and truly giving us now. I don't know where I'm going to put all the other banners, probably on the sides. I'll look at that at another time, but for now I think this is a really neat look. Let's have a closer peek at what we've done. Okay, so I've put my checkered flag banners up in the corners, hanging from these screws, and they're just pegged there in place. The Red Bull banner is hanging off a piece of, well, it's an old curtain rod, well, two actually, joined together, and I've put up some more hooks into the ceiling. They're well secured. I found the beams, and I've got the other checkered flag banner in this corner, helping to hide all the ugly garage door bits and pieces. TV's back on, as you can see, and I think it's looking pretty cool. I've managed to put that cable cover, I painted that as well. That's covering up the ugly cables. The PowerPoint was in an unfortunate position. There was no way to really hide this one. I did paint the cover I think I'm going to have to try and paint the actual cable in an attempt to make it camouflage and disappear into the background, but I don't mind it being there. Would have been ideal if it was down here. And as you can see, speaking of down here, there was no tricks. I painted all the way to the ground. No skimping. And yeah, in the time lapse I cut that out because, you know, I just disappear and you don't see me for about, well, forever. But yeah, all the way to the ground and all the way in behind the storage behind that curtain. So it was tricky, it was awkward, but now it's done. Another item on the list that I can now cross off. And what's the next big item? Oh, the next big item will be, drum roll, I've mentioned it before, it's going to be the magnetic racing Ferris wheel, which is, well, it was going here. I've since discovered that is not going to actually fit. And after sort of giving up, throwing in the towel and deciding, well, we won't get one of them after all, I did change my mind. I came up with some other ideas, some different alternatives. So one of those Ferris wheels is currently on the way. It's in the air as I speak. Not sure when it will arrive. I don't know if it'll arrive in time for next week. Next week I think I'll do what I said we were going to do for this week, and that is run all these cars in some time trials and see where they all stand. See if this guy is indeed still the king of the garage. This car, by the way, I've been running this in since the last video, and oh my god, do I love this car. It's not quite king of the garage, but he has moved up the ranks. He's now comfortably in second place. He's the second king of the garage. Does that make him the queen? I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one. Something different, a bit of arty art. Oh, that's right. I've got something else to attend to now, so I better wrap this up. Thanks for watching. See you next week on Hughes Garage Slot Car Adventures.
And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and press that little bell notification. You don't want to miss out on what we have coming up in the next few weeks. And now it's time to gush and gush and gush. Look at those mountains of doom.
Bloody predator.
Ooh, show us your package.
Be quiet, you. It's the middle of winter. There's nothing to show.